Hello everyone, my name is Vishnu Mano and welcome to The Den. This is the first video in a series of Python tutorials. This series will give you a strong understanding of the Python language and will cover data types, variables, conditional logic, loops, and functions. We will also cover the Python standard library and how to import third-party modules. Without any further ado, let's get started. The first step is to download the Python language. Downloading Python is kind of like the computer's way of learning a new language. Therefore, when we program in Python, our computer recognizes the language. Navigate to python.org and click on Downloads. Click on the latest version for your operating system, in my case, Mac OS. After installing the Python language, we need to install a text editor. A text editor allows us to type and run our code. Although REPL.it, an online editor, can read Python, for our intents and purposes, the best text editor would be Visual Studio Code. Go to code.visualstudio.com and download the latest version for your operating system. Now your computer is set up to program in Python. Start by opening up VS Code on your device. With Visual Studio Code, we can open up a directory from our computer. Go to your desktop and create a new folder called Python First. Back in Visual Studio Code, we can navigate to this folder by clicking on File, Open, and clicking on our desired folder, in this case Python First. Then, let's create a new file called first.py. All files in Python are denoted as a .py file. On Visual Studio Code, it is a good idea to go to Extensions and download the Python linter. It provides suggestions and auto-completes the syntax for you. From here, we can start learning the basic Python syntax. The very first thing we need to learn for any programming language would be basic data types. Data types are just what they sound like, types of data. There are three main types of data that you need to know: string, integer, and Boolean. A string is basically any word or number. We can create a string by typing it in between two quotation marks. Quotation marks is how we notate strings in Python. An integer, however, is restricted to only numbers. Therefore, we do not need quotation marks. We can simply write the integer like this. Then we have Booleans. Booleans are either true or false. Notice that when I am typing, recommendations come up. That is proof that our linter is working. It recognizes Python as a language and has an idea of what we will type next. Also, your code might be different colors than mine. That is because I have a theme installed on VS Code to bring the visual aspect to my liking. If you are interested, go to Extensions and type in AYU. This will bring you to the theme I am currently using, which can be installed and configured by clicking this button. Now that we know what data types are, let's introduce a variable. By the way, these hashtags that I'm using signify a comment. Comments are text that the computer skips over when reading. Therefore, it is good practice to document what your code does in these comments so that whoever is reading your code knows what it means. Variables in programming are the same as math. They're symbols used to store data. Let's start with the variable x. We can set this variable equal to 5. The variable x is classified as an integer because 5 is an integer. We can assign variables to strings and booleans as well. We can assign y to hello world and z to true. And all of these are valid variables. Throws us an error. This is because a string can have numbers, but an integer is restricted to numbers. I will demonstrate this later. Now great, we have variables, but what can we do with them? This is where our print function comes in handy. A function is anything that accepts inputs and has outputs. We will learn to create our own functions in future videos within this series. For now, let's stick with the default functions like the print function. Print hello world will print the string hello world. To run a program in Python, type Python and then the program name. If your terminal is in the wrong directory, your program will not run. Notice that we can also print an integer and a Boolean. When we print a variable, the value of the variable is printed. We can even add integers together by using the print function. Print 4 plus 5 will yield in a result of 9. However, print 4 plus 5 will yield in 45. Yes, here we see the definition of a string versus an integer in action. The integer actually added the two numbers and printed the sum. The string, however, did not print the sum. This is because integers are real numbers and are given properties of numbers. Strings, on the other hand, are treated as words and they cannot be added. Adding two strings is called concatenation. This is where two strings are printed right next to one another. We can also add variables with Python. You might be wondering if you can switch the data type of a variable. For example, if we declare a variable test and set it equal to 5 as a string, we can turn 5 into an integer by using the int function. Similarly, we can turn an integer into a string by using the string function. However, we can't change a string into an integer if the string is not a number. Now that we have a basic understanding of data types, variables, and the print function, let's end this video by creating a basic application. We can declare two variables, num1 and num2. Num1 is equivalent to 3, and num2 is equivalent to 7. The goal is to print out the result. Therefore, we can use the print function and add the two variables together, and run the program, and voila, it works. We can simply go change the values of our variables to find the sums of different numbers. We can create new variables to add more numbers. We can even change the operator to subtraction, multiplication, and division. This is a solid calculator app for your first time programming with Python. During the next video, we will dive further into Python and learn about lists, conditional logic, and loops. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.